So come to lie on your back and rest. And as you settle into the floor, just listen to your process of settling in, recognizing, here's the floor, and you can give yourself over to the floor for support. Begin to notice that from the back of your head, maybe the contact of your shoulder blades, down along your spine, and into your pelvis. The contact. And then, of course, their legs and arms. But think about this vertical axis, this primary center line. I brought your attention first to the head, the shoulder blades, the spine in between the shoulder blades, all the way down into your pelvis. You can reverse it from your pelvis. Base of your spine is housed in the pelvis, journeying up, how the spine continues up between your shoulder blades and all the way to the top of your head. And just get this idea. And then find for you the idea of your legs, the length of your legs that move up into your pelvis, and your arms that come up in towards your torso. They connect in. And can you get the image that they're all interconnected? So that if one moves, there's a relationship through the rest of you. And then very slowly, roll your head easy. Roll your head easy, just to discern where you started rolling it. And the difference from when you roll to one side easy, and it comes back to the middle, the neutral, and then you roll to the other side. You're discerning differences. And was it just the rolling of your head? Or could you begin to pay attention to the rest of you on the floor? Any subtle shifts that you became aware of? And now think, because we played with many lessons with the awareness of the teleceptors, these sensory organs in our head, the 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 nostrils, your mouth with the upper and the lower of the jaw, and your tongue, the movements of your tongue. That you could think about these teleceptors that help initiate the rolling of your head. And then do the rolling of your head again easy. You're not looking for a big range. You're looking for a quality that feels so nice. And see if there's a specific teleceptor that gets your attention more, or they're different. And ones that it just wakes up for you, like that's got your attention. That one may be more than another, or the differences in them. And if it affects the way you roll your head. And then you pause and rest. Now, gently place your hands so that they rest on your ribs, the lower ribs. Your elbows will bend out to the side. Elbows are on the floor. But you just rest your hands so that you feel, they're making contact. And then very slowly, very gently, noticing your shoulder blades and how they rest on the floor. With your right shoulder blade, your right arm, your right elbow, slowly begin to lift. Lift your right elbow easy away from the floor, but as you do that, allow your right hand, your right fingers to lean more into the ribs on the front of you, the right side. So that the right fingers, the right hands actually might lean or depress a little bit into the ribs as you go to lift your right elbow. And you just do it where it's easy. And then you allow your right elbow to come back to the floor. You do that a few times just to discern, as you begin to lift the right elbow, what happens in your right wrist. If you're thinking that the hand, the fingers, want to make more a leaning or a gentle depressing into the right frontal ribs, the lower ribs. Does that help you lift the right elbow a little bit? And notice, did your head move? And then the next time you do that, and you bring your right elbow to lift away from the floor towards the ceiling, using your right hand to lean a little bit more into the right ribs. When you bring the right elbow back, just notice if it's different. Now that you're exploring this, the sense of your right shoulder blade. And then you pause from that for a moment. And then you do that same exploration with your left elbow. Think about, you want to lift the left elbow away from the floor. It doesn't have to be big, but listen to the relationship in your left shoulder, the left hand resting on the left ribs. What happens in the left wrist, how you breathe. If there's a movement in your head. And then the difference when you return the left elbow to the floor, what you might feel in your left shoulder blade. You just notice there's a relationship here, or are you only thinking of the part that I'm asking you to initiate the movement? You might notice how you breathe. Do you inhale? Do you exhale as you do that? Good. So that's just a little reference movement. And then maybe do both elbows together, lifting so that each hand will lean a little bit more in the ribs, the lower ribs on the front of you, to help those elbows lift. What happened to the elbows? Did they just go up, or did they go a little further out to the side to arc up? What happened in your chest, your neck, your head? And then when you bring them back down, really feel that those elbows could maybe tap or lean a little bit more into the floor. What happened to your shoulder blades? What's the difference in the relationship of your shoulder blades from when you lift the elbows away from the floor? What happens in your chest? And you bring them back to the floor, and then you maybe lean a little bit more into the floor with the elbows. What happens in your chest, your shoulder blades? And then let that go. Just rest. Notice your contact. The very beginning. And now slowly, before you take an action to roll to a side, I want to describe what you'll do. You'll roll first to come onto your left side. The idea is, can you use your left arm long as a pillow to rest your head on? When you get to the left side, you'll bend your hips and knees 90 degrees, and you'll place your right hand in a push-up position on the floor in front of your chest. If it is difficult to use your left arm long, and the palm of the left hand would be oriented more towards the ceiling, then please find whatever head support you need that would be pretty equal to the amount that the upper left arm would give you as support for your head to rest on. You're looking to have an alignment, just like I asked the vertical axis as you were lying on your back, that the head, neck, and spine want to be relatively aligned in the vertical. There. And you just rest here. Now the movements, you're more concerned with small and slow versus looking to create a big movement. In fact, we're looking for a quality that just feels easy, that you're not going to do a lot. You'll do a little, but as if you could do it again and again and again, you would not fatigue, you wouldn't irritate anything. But we're asking to go slow and small so that you can pay attention without any startle effect to your nervous system. Very slowly, very gently, in this position, and you'll keep your right hand resting on the floor, and your knees are bent 90 degrees, as are your hips, so that your lower legs will be vertical. They'll be equal in a sense, but parallel to the length of your spine. There. And now, slowly, easy, and maybe think of these teleceptors. Roll your head an inch or two, no more, towards the ceiling, which would be towards the right, and then return. And you do that each time. It's an individual exploration, so that the next time you choose to do it, you decide, well, do I want to make it a little different, easier? Oh, if I have the right hand in a push-up position, does it even help a little bit? But do less work, just looking for more comfort and ease. And then you could think of those teleceptors. Is it the eyes, the ears, the nose, your tongue, the mouth, that is awakening to initiate how you roll your head? An inch or two, no more. And then you come back, you rest. And now that imaginary loose string that you have tied around your ankles, such that your top right foot won't flop off of the bottom foot. Begin to make a movement in your pelvis, and maybe initiate it from the top right side, right hip, right knee, and just make that lovely little movement of gliding and sliding your top hip and knee a little forward and a little back. So let me clarify again. Tie an imaginary string around your ankles and think that your top pelvis, the right side of your pelvis and knee, if I'm there with you, just behind you, and I gently just give a little indication to slide the top hip and knee a little forward. Your feet still stay together. It's just a little bit of a rocking. That's it. And back. But you can let everything else be quiet. Or do you notice that, oh, and I just want to make a global rolling? Just think more of the pelvis right now. A little forward, a little back. And you can keep the rest of you quiet. Or you notice, no, I'm rolling. I'm preferring the rolling. But then see if it's also possible to do it where everything else is relatively quiet and you're just paying attention to your top hip and knee while you listen to the relationship of everything else. And then, if I said, still that imaginary string is around your ankles, what if I said, which direction would you think to move your pelvis so that if you a little amount, an inch or two, wanted to lift your right knee away from the bottom left knee, which direction would you go with your pelvis so that it would make the top knee lighter to lift an inch or two? That's it. And notice how you breathe when you do that. That's it. And maybe some of you are noticing, because I see it, that you actually do something in your ankle. Does the outside of your right ankle get longer and the inside of your right ankle, it shortens a little bit? That's it. Lovely. And then pause and rest here. And now place your right arm long on top of your right side. And once again, do that movement you just did with your right knee, where you're going to lift it an inch or two away from the left knee and feel through your right arm that there's a little bit of this rolling that's happening. And if I said to you, well, as you do that, actually roll your head a little bit to the left an inch or two. Feel what that does. Make it easy. If your head is resting on your arm, your head will just roll on the arm. That's it. And how do you breathe when you do that? Just make it easy. And then come back. And now this time, as you go ahead to lift the right knee away from the left knee, pay attention to the left knee on the floor. Do you forget you're on the floor? Maybe you gently also lean gently into the floor with not only your left knee, but the left side of you. That will help the right knee get a little lighter to lift. And then the next time you do that, could you allow your head the inch or two to roll towards the ceiling to the right as you lift the right knee? And can you feel when you do that, but the right arm is long on top of your right side, can you feel the right arm is not in a push-up position right now? There it is. There you go. And can you feel that actually when you do it this way, and think of the ground force that you're leaning on, that you want to be connected with, can you also feel that your right shoulder and shoulder blades slide a little back as you lift the right knee and you roll your head an inch or two with the right knee, opening towards the ceiling? And then you come back to the neutral. And you pay attention again. Is the head and the knee moving equal, or does one move more than the other? And it's okay if they don't move equal, but listen to the different relationship. If one moves more than the other, where do you notice that in your spine? If one moves a little bit more than the other, where do you feel a little twist in comparison to if they both move absolutely simultaneously and equal? Might be a sensation of a little bit more of a rolling. And can you feel the ground on the left side that you're rolling on? That's it. And then slowly continue the rolling, giving up the constraints so that you can roll back onto your back and rest. And when you get there, you're just resting again. You go back to that scan. We were thinking of the primary line and the lines of our limbs. But begin to notice if one side along your spine, the right or the left, feels different in how it makes contact with the floor, not only from the initial scan, but now, one side compared with the other. Maybe you notice a little difference. And then gently go back and roll your head a little from one side to the other to notice if there's already a subtle little change there. And then you pause for a moment. And then now you're going to go to lie on your right side, just as you did on the left. You'll use your right arm, if available, long to rest your head on. You'll bend your hips and knees 90 degrees, and you'll place your left hand in a push-up position in front of your chest. And as you rest here, you're simply concerned with, not even a big concern, but it's different how I lie on this side compared to the other side. And whenever the arm is not available for you to lie your head on the arm so that you're really aligned in a straight vertical axis, then instead of changing the position so that your head would be more folded forward, just move the arm a little bit and rest with the head support that would be equal to the size that your arm would provide. There. And now slowly, it's a different side. So you just go innocently, curious to find out what's similar, what's different. Begin to roll your head about an inch or two towards the ceiling, which would be to the left. When you do that, you still want to maintain your left hand on the floor, but you might notice if there's a subtle shift in your left hand. And as you turned your head, did you use a specific teleceptor to start? Were you paying attention to that? You'll be rolling over the long arm. It's a rolling. And you begin to discern, do I begin to feel something happens in my left shoulder blade? And then after you've done that a few times, you just bring your head back into the neutral, you rest. And then again, that imaginary loose string tied around your ankles. And what did you learn from the other side as to what would help make the top knee, now the left knee, feel light and easy to lift an inch or two away from the bottom knee? Would you think about which direction you would glide your top hip and knee in relationship to the bottom? Would you think about the ground force you're lying on, a gentle leaning, depressing into the floor that would allow the top side to feel lighter? And begin slowly. It's almost like a little bit of a clamshell. We're beginning to open the clamshell and then you close it. But you want to feel that sense of light and easy and always feel the ground that you're on. It tells you where you are. And then slowly, you rest on the side. We're doing a few movements. And then you place your long left arm on top of your left side. And then just go ahead and make that movement again of lifting your left knee away from the right knee. And your left arm will give you an information as to, oh, there's movement. And if your left arm is traveling on your left hip and the left hip is moving, can you also feel your left shoulder blade is beginning to move? Notice if you're rolling like a unit or there's a sequential relationship. In fact, try this. See what happens when you do this. As you go to lift your left knee away from the right, an equal amount, roll your head towards the floor. And then everything comes back to the neutral together. Do that a couple of times. So it's a differentiated movement. What changed in your shoulder blade? Or where do you discern something shifted? And then you couple the movement of lifting your left knee with the rolling of your head also in the same direction to the left, which would be opening a little bit towards the ceiling. And listen to how you breathe when you do this. Leisurely, comfortably. And listen to the ground, that as you are rolling your head and lifting your top knee, you can begin to feel you're traveling on the floor, unfolding yourself a little bit more towards your back, but then you come back to the neutral. And pay attention to the floor behind you, because that's what you're rolling on. Until you find a way that you could give up the constraints, but don't be so quick to give up the constraint. And then rest again on your right side. Now this time, the left arm is still resting on top of your left side. Begin to make a soft, easy movement of sliding your left shoulder blade a little back behind you, and then return. And the left shoulder blade a little back behind you and return. And notice what your head wants to do. And then a couple of times, as you're sliding your left shoulder blade a little back behind you, maybe just try rolling your head a little bit more towards the floor, toward the right, differentiating. Just go easy. So that the going in either direction and then the returning to neutral feels really smooth and easy. And where are you looking? Are you looking down? Are you looking forward? Are your eyes arcing as if you were seeing the horizon arcing out in front of you and down towards the floor? What's the trajectory? And then slowly allow your head and eyes to follow the left shoulder blade sliding back behind you. And feel what's happening. And then couple that movement with allowing the top left knee to lift, so that now from a gentle little twist, you're beginning to create a little bit more of that rolling. And then slowly compare. What if one of those times I don't lift the knee, and then I do it again, and then I do lift the knee? What's different? And where throughout you do you feel the difference, the sensation? That's it. Beautiful. And then very slowly, which would be the pattern where you could begin in the movement, and then there'll be a moment in the movement that you give up the constraints so that you can continue this easy, gentle rolling through your skeleton to come back onto your back and rest. And you feel what's different or the same, what's changing. It's this ability to quiet ourselves and then direct our attention softly, because attention is muscular. And the more intent we get on figuring something out, the more muscular, the more sympathetic, activated our nervous system is. But if we can just let it go and observe with no judgment, just awareness to go, I think, I sense, it begins to integrate. Slowly roll back onto your left side. So that you're looking for whether you're on your back or you're returning to the left side or the right side. It's an effortless ability to gather yourself up and roll. And then here, place your right arm long on top of your hip, your right hip. And just slowly, easy, begin to move your right shoulder blade, and the arm is going to sort of rest. So it's not going to flop all over the place. But think of the shoulder blade and begin to roll or slide your top shoulder blade, the right shoulder blade, a little forward, back through the neutral, and a little back. That's it. And listen to the ground that you're lying on the left side. And notice what your head does. And maybe you begin to differentiate the way your head is rolling from the movement of your right shoulder blade. So if you're rolling your right shoulder blade back, roll your head and eyes towards the floor to the left. Everything comes back to the neutral. Then when you slide and glide your right shoulder blade a little forward, you roll your head and eyes towards the right, the ceiling. You are differentiating. And feel in your cervical neck spine where you feel this. You can reduce the amount, slow it down, and you can use different teleceptors too in order to do this. How do you coordinate this? It's a little bit of a puzzle. And sometimes as we're trying to figure that out, we do it a little bit more muscular, a little bit more active, and it's a little jerky. Then once you start to find that, you just slow it down. And is it different if you pay attention to a different teleceptor? Remember I shared with you, for me, something about the nose just gets my attention. Maybe it's because I live in an old-growth forest and there are lots of deer and owl and hawks and so many wonderful animals that I can watch and observe and learn from. And then start to do the movement where for you it feels more congruent. It feels more congruent. Is it when you take the shoulder and the head and eyes together? But then when you do that, could you do another differentiation? As you take your head, eyes, nose, shoulder blade in one direction, could you glide the top hip and knee in the opposite direction? Everything comes back to the neutral. Then when you reverse the direction your head, eyes, and shoulder blade go, you slide and glide the top hip and knee in the opposite direction to the way you're going. And feel where in your spine there's a differentiation. Creating a gentle, easy little twist. And just go slow and easy. Good. And then begin to let them all go in the same direction. And then, as you start to go in the direction towards the ceiling, and you begin to allow that knee, the top knee, to lift, follow, use this to roll to your back and rest. And then you observe you, the ease and comfort of rolling to the floor. Any difference from each time you came to rest on the floor, your contact, or the ability to relinquish any unnecessary work to just, rest into the floor. You're breathing. Length of your spine. And then with this same awareness through the ground force and rolling, please roll back to lie on your right side in this orientation of hips and knees 90 degrees, right arm long to rest your head on. And then have your left arm resting along your left side. And slowly begin first with the shoulder blade. It's the left shoulder blade. And just easy, slow, so that you want it like as if you were moving your shoulder blade in thick molasses. And since the translation of my last name means honey, it could be thick honey. So it's viscous, it's thick, so you can't move fast. Slow. Sometimes we have the same sensation if you're in a pool, the water. Easy. And just feel as you take your left shoulder blade now, sliding it forward and back, what your head wants to do. What's happening in your ribs against the floor. And your top arm can feel the ribs on your left side. It feels your pelvis too. Is there a congruency happening? And then begin to take your head and eyes in the opposite direction your shoulder blade is going. Just to discern where you feel the difference, the change in direction. And you go slow and soft and easy. So at any moment you reverse. It's not about how far you go. It's the quality and how you're coordinating this. And then you pause from that a moment. And you begin now to allow the shoulder blade and your head and eyes to go in the same direction, forward and back, just a little. But now allow your top hip and knee to go in the opposite direction. And you slow it down so that you can coordinate this. And someplace else in your spine, there's a gentle little twist beginning to happen. You observe this. So if the left shoulder blade and the head and eyes are going back, it's the left hip and knee that are going forward. And then everything comes to neutral. And then if the left shoulder blade and head and eyes are rolling forward towards the right, then the left hip and knee slide back a little bit. So there's really an opposition. You just go smaller and you go slower to make sure I'm doing that versus the rolling. They're all lovely, but to get clear, when am I doing which one? Because there's a different sensation and wear through your spine. And how to coordinate this. It's a pattern in our brain that we might have remembered, or I'm forgetting it. And then begin to do them all congruently. And you can begin to add in the lifting of the top knee. It would be the left knee. And maybe in one of those directions, if you're doing it all congruently, the top knee doesn't lift. Maybe the top foot or foreleg lift a little bit. And then you come back to the neutral and you roll the opposite direction. How can all of you start to accompany this movement? Until you find a way that you just keep rolling, rolling, rolling until you've rolled to your back and rest. And then just slowly for a moment, on your back, just go ahead and roll your head again like we did in the beginning, a little from one side to the other, just to notice, is this changing? Quality. Maybe even range, but more important than range is quality, because when you find the quality, the range it begins to just exponentially increase, not under duress or coercion, but naturally, efficiently. And then roll back onto your left side. Do this rolling so you can feel through your skull. When is the moment that you shift your bottom left arm so it will be there to meet your head as you really continue the rolling to your left? When is the moment that your hips and knees start to gather together and fold? And now this time, place your right arm. Let me describe it for you. You will have your right arm resting on top of your right side, but you're going to do it in such a way where your right elbow is bent and your right forearm is resting on the ribs so that your right hand is in front of you, but your right elbow is back behind you. That's it. It's sort of like you're slinging. Make sure that that's it. That you're slinging the right arm and somewhere in the forearm, it's balancing on your top right ribs. Perfect. Now this time, remember when we were on our on our back to start, I asked you to place your hands to rest on the bottom ribs. So with your right hand, make sure that how you're slinging this right forearm across your ribs horizontally. If the spine is on the vertical line, your forearm is on a horizontal line. Make sure that you've got it in such a place that you can really rest your hand, your right hand, on those lower ribs, that you want to lean gently into them. It's like, I don't want to let go of them. But you want to do it in such a way that you can really rest that forearm and elbow back behind. That's it. You just figure it out. Now here's what I'm going to ask you to do. You're going to keep your right hand feeling the contact of your ribs. Maybe it's the front of the ribs versus the side. You'll figure it out. Your intelligent brains. Easy, easy. Begin to lift your right elbow towards the ceiling as the right hand leans into your ribs on the front right side. And then every time you let go of lifting the right elbow towards the ceiling, you just let it go and let that forearm sling rest on your ribs. Let the right elbow hang back. Don't push it back, but you lift the right elbow towards the ceiling. In order for you to really maintain some contact with the front right lower ribs, your wrist has to do something. Your collarbone will do something. Your shoulder blade will do something. Maybe your head will do something. Your sternum will do something. Is it a folding sensation in the front of you? And then slowly, just let that forearm and elbow let go, plump, and let be. in the position slung over your right ribs, with that elbow bent back behind you. So let me clarify again. You want to have the forearm resting on the side of your right ribs. You have your right hand resting on the lower right ribs in front, and your right elbow is back behind you. That's the position I want. And I'm asking every time you take your right elbow towards the ceiling, and then you let go and you let the right elbow come back into this position. Feel if the right elbow, you let go of it. You just let it go. If the right elbow doesn't move a little bit more towards the floor behind you. That's it. But just let the elbow go. It's not as much rolling. It's just a movement of the elbow towards the ceiling, but keep the fingers resting on the ribs so they're pressing lightly, and then let it go. Instead of you're really rolling. Here's another way to do it, because it's difficult for some of you. Put your right hand to rest at the rim of your pelvis. You know, like, that's it. Well, it really rests there comfortably so that you can move your elbow the same way. Better for some of you. Good. Lift it and drop it. And lift it and drop it. And what I'm asking is, can you discern that every time you lift it and then plop, you drop it, you let it go, does the right elbow hang a little bit more in the direction of the floor behind you? Not because you press it, but plop. That's it. And then see if you can put your hands again on the lower right ribs, or like the solar plexus, or closer to your belly, wherever it is you can, so that that hand maintains contact, so that every time you want to lift the right elbow towards the ceiling, the hand presses into you to help it. It's almost as if the hand is pressing back into you as the elbow is lifting up. And then as you let go of the elbow and just let it drop, let's just let it drop, you still maintain the contact easy of your right hand with you. Better. And plop. Good. Leave it alone. In fact, every time now you do this 1 or 2 more times and you let that right elbow plop back, does your head want to follow? Does your head and eyes want to follow the elbow? Let it. Turn your head and eyes, your nose, you, to follow that right elbow. That's it. And because I didn't give you the instruction to lift the top knee, where do you feel this gentle twist? That's it. And then go ahead a couple of times, and as you start to do that, lift the right knee. Lift the right knee when you go ahead and you return the right elbow to just plop back, and the right forearm is resting, or like a sling, on the upper right ribs, meaning towards the ceiling. That's it. That's it. And then use this in such a way to give up the constraints and roll to your back and rest. And notice if one shoulder blade, one side of you, is resting easier on the floor than the other. And roll your head and discern if it rolls a little easier to one side than the other. Not that you aren't rolling it often, but just subtly. Is it a little different to the side, the right side, that you've been playing with, just letting the elbow lift and plop it back? And then slowly roll onto your right side. and find a way with your left arm that you could sling the left forearm to rest on top of the left ribs. The left elbow would be a little back behind you. You do it in such a way that you're seeking, how can I get my left hand, the wrist would bend a little bit maybe, so that I can really rest and hug with my left hand some part of my left side of my front ribs or solar plexus or belly. You got to find it for yourself. And then begin again slowly. Feel how you would, do you just lift the elbow, the left elbow, or do you feel a lengthening up to arc it around you towards the ceiling, and then just let it fall back so that the left forearm comes back to rest on the left upper ribs, meaning the ribs on the ceiling side. And then you do that again. And maybe think that as you let go of the left elbow, it's towards the ceiling, and then you let it go, you allow your head and eyes easy to turn a little bit more to the left. Does it free the left arm, the left shoulder, the left elbow to drop? And what's happening to the left shoulder blade? Can you feel that that also wants to slide back behind you and towards your spine as you let go of that left elbow oriented towards the ceiling, and you just let it go. That's it. It's a little bit of a rocking. But you still keep at this moment your knees together comfortably. So there's a twist happening. That's it. And you do it easy, so it's not really percussive, it's playful. Playful. And what happens if I say, oh, no. Every time you want to take your left elbow towards the ceiling, you turn your head and eyes to the left. And then every time you want to drop your left elbow back, but it rests, it straddles on your upper ribs, you turn your head and eyes to the right. Can you feel there's a little bit of, it's a differentiation. It's an oppositional pattern. And you do that a few times to just go, well, what is that going to advantage? So then you come back and you do what you suspect is a little bit more congruent, that as I take my left elbow towards the ceiling, and I feel when I do that, I'm pressing gently into the front of me with my left hand. You let your head and eyes go to the floor in the direction. And then every time you're ready to say, let it go, and you let that left elbow, the tip of the elbow, want to go plump, so that you can feel some aspect of the forearm maybe resting on those ribs, you allow your head and eyes to follow. Which direction of your head and eyes makes it easier? And the idea is you let go. You don't hold it. You just plop, because that left forearm has got your ribs all on the upper side to rest on, and your left hand is resting on you, your tummy or the front of your ribs, wherever you have purchase, wherever you have a place that it rests. And then start to play with that left knee. You could lift the left knee away from the right knee as you're taking the elbow towards the ceiling. Ooh, isn't that one of those twists, those differentiated patterns again? And then every time you want to take the left elbow and let it go plop back so that the left elbow is dipped back behind you, you can close the left knee. Where here in your spine do you feel that? That's it. And you do that a couple of times just to say, well, why is she giving me this funny movement? Because it's a flexibility of your mind, your brain, and look what it's going to do when now I say, every time you want to drop your left elbow after it's lifted towards the ceiling and you want to just plop, let it drop back. You could also lift your left knee. What will that advantage? That's it. That's it. Good. And then use this pattern as you give up a constraint and roll to your back and rest. See, there's a moment when you give up a constraint. There's a moment when you let the right arm that was long, you're resting your head on, it slides down to rest. It's the timing of your coordination. And you've all heard me say, oh, what got left out to pasture? It all comes home together, whether it's simultaneous or sequential. And listen to your contact. Now very slowly, go ahead and bring your hands, the elbows will bend gently out to the side, and you're going to bring your hands to rest on the front of you, maybe on the bottom ribs. Right hand leans into the bottom ribs and the solar plexus of your right side. Left hand palm rests on the left side. And if I said slowly, gently, as maybe you exhale, you want to lengthen your right elbow away from you and then lift it, arc it towards the ceiling while the right palm leans into you where it's resting on your tummy, on your ribs, and then let the right elbow go. And do that a few times and notice what your head and eyes want to do. And then a few times, do it with your left elbow. The hand wants to lean into the left side of the front of you, and you think the left elbow goes a little out to the left, and then it arcs up. Oh my goodness, think of birds of flight. That's it. And bloop. And what does your head and eyes want to do? The more that the hand can rest on you instead of come away from you, the more something else will change a little deeper into you. That's it. So don't try to do the biggest, but it's the elbow going towards the ceiling. It's the elbow lifting towards the ceiling, arcing in front of you. That's it. And plop down. Now slowly, bring both of your feet to stand. Do the movement that way. Maybe once or twice, press with the right hand into the front of you and lift the right elbow in the direction towards the ceiling, and then let it come down. And then do it with the left elbow. Just feel, now that you have feet standing, what's the difference? And then do the elbows together. Good. And think you're like a bird, flying a little bit, flapping your wings. And then rest your arms beside you, keep your feet standing. Very slowly, once, lean the right shoulder blade back into the floor. Feel what happens in the right arm and let go. Do that a couple of times. What happened to your head, your eyes? Did you do anything with your feet? And which foot maybe helped? And then do it with the left shoulder blade. Lean it back into the floor and then let go. What happened to the space between the shoulder blades toward your spine or your lower back or your neck? And then slowly lean and depress both shoulder blades back into the floor as if both shoulder blades wanted to come closer together towards your spine to kiss each other. That's it. And then let go. Feel what happened in your neck and your head and your spine. And then slowly rest. I'm going to add in one tiny little thing. Gently, just let the arms rest as they are, but tilt your pelvis in such a way that you want to help the lower back lift a little bit. We often think of this when we're lying on our back as the 6 o'clock. The tailbone wants to go in the direction of the floor between your legs and then release. Do that direction a couple of times, easy. And feel that you're creating a little bit of an arch. Your feet are standing, so you'd be pushing into your feet to help. But the push is not to push up, it's almost to pull down so that you can help the tilting of the pelvis downward. And then as you do that, couple it with leaning and depressing both shoulder blades back into the floor as you tilt the tailbone down towards the floor, creating a little bit of an arch, a little bit of a bridge underneath your lower back. And then let go. And now this time, because it's depending on what we want to do, as you simultaneously tilt your tailbone down, lean and depress both shoulder blades back into the floor, but back into the floor because they want to come closer together to say hi. Tilt your head up, open your mouth, and look up. And then release. And do that several times. Easy. Easy. Do you inhale? Do you exhale? Maybe try whatever you're doing. You also compare if you exhaled as you tilted the pelvis down and you depressed the shoulder blades back and you let the whole front of you get long and you're creating a little bit of a tunnel, a bridge behind you that a little critter could scooch behind. That's it. Your belly has to free. That's it. Good. And then let that go and rest. And notice your contact with the floor. And what's changed for you? And then slowly, think about the ground beneath you and the rolling. To roll by way of one side. You'll be rolling to fold yourself. And then from there, how would you roll to fold to then spiral up to stand? Because it's when we come into the vertical that something that we've been exploring on the floor begins to awaken and integrate. Just take your time, leisurely, easy. And then you come to stand. And then as you come to stand, in your own time, feet spread comfortably, not sumo wrestler, but not really close together. It's not that it's wrong, but notice where your biases are, your habits, and can you add into that a little something else? Variety. You know what they call it? The variety is the spice of life. And feel your uprightness. For those that have difficulty just letting your arms rest, you want to hold them in front, you want to hold them behind, you want to put them in pockets. Again, that's a compulsion. What is it? I mean, if there's pain, then I want to know where there's pain. But is it just, I don't know what to do with them? That it is parasitic effort, muscular work. And just feel your uprightness. Feel where your horizon is. Feel the shape of your spine and walk around. And notice your uprightness. Notice the shape of your spine. There are curves there. And those curves are our shock absorbers. And enjoy the day. Enjoy your weekend.